So when people are trying to overcome their physical symptoms, their feelings of unreality, their intrusive thoughts, they try to do things to avoid feeling those symptoms, right? They may avoid their triggers. They may try to fix this so that this goes away. They may try to analyze why this is happening. And that is the wrong kind of avoidance. That way is a surefire way to really honestly, what I see, people end up become agoraphobic, meaning they stop leaving the house. They are so terrified of feeling their anxiety that their avoidance behavior gets very strong. So avoidance is not the way to recovery. It's not. However, there are certain things to avoid. And one of the main things to avoid is this idea of labels. Here's what I mean. So the thing to avoid is labels. Here's what I mean. When I fell into this anxiety trap, I was diagnosed with a panic disorder, a generalized anxiety disorder, OCD, a little bit of depression, and agoraphobia. Now, can you imagine struggling with all those things? Can you imagine having that many labels? How easy was it for me to think, oh my God, I'm just messed up. Like there's something seriously wrong with me. Like I have so many labels, there's no way I'm gonna be able to get out of this. Some people have one, I have five. I have 5 things. And much like you, if you've been struggling with anxiety, you may have even gotten a lot of labels too. Now here's the interesting thing. Once I focused on recovery, all of those went away. The truth is all those labels were really one specific problem, which was anxiety. One of the things to really avoid is leveraging anxiety as an identity. Here's what I mean. If you are having an anxiety disorder, a panic disorder, agoraphobia, OCD, whatever you're experiencing, these are just labels. They're not a form of identity, meaning they're all still part of the same problem. They're part of anxiety. If you fix the anxiety, all these things end up going away. All of those things end up going away. That's exactly what happened to me. And what happens is that when people end up getting diagnosed with this, they end up making an identity. They're not somebody who's struggling with identity. They're not somebody who's struggling with anxiety. They are someone with an anxiety disorder. It makes it sound more permanent. And it makes it sound like this is something that's happening to you and that there's no way out. It's kind of like disease, which is not. And it's one of the things that when I'm guiding people to recovery, I actually avoid the term disorder. I don't like it. It makes it sound too permanent. It makes it sound like it's a life sentence. People equate it too much with the idea of like having some sort of chronic disease. So I'd rather just not even use the term. I'd rather say what it truly is. You're struggling with anxiety at the moment. It's not a life sentence. It's really not. And the truth is that the reason why labels are even given is not for you. The idea for labels isn't so that you are identified with a generalized anxiety disorder. The reason why labels are there are to help medical professionals categorize. See, if you go to a doctor, let's say you have anxiety and panic, or let's say you have OCD and panic. Now, you go to a doctor and he looks at your medical history and he notices that you have a history of panic and OCD. Well, the truth is the doctor's gonna know very quickly what's wrong with you. The idea is for him is that the doctor knows, okay, this person is dealing with panic attacks and he has intrusive thoughts. He has OCD tendencies. He knows that he's not struggling with health anxiety. He knows he's not feeling depersonalization, derealization. Why? Because of those labels. Now what happens is that a lot of these doctors end up telling the patient this and that the patient ends up making an identity. The idea of these disorders isn't for you to make it an identity. It's just for them to be able to categorize you so they can go through proper treatment. But what ends up happening, I see so often, is people become identified with this. And there's a very dangerous thing that happens when you become identified with this. If you end up identifying with the fact that I have a generalized anxiety disorder, if you become identified with the fact of having a panic disorder or dissociation disorder, like depersonalization, derealization, what happens is your ego starts protecting that. It becomes an identity, it becomes who you are. And so even if it's something you want to make it go away, well, it's part of who you are. Your ego is not going to let that go. One of the most important things I focus on when I'm helping people fully overcome is let go of these identities. Don't focus on these identities. These identities aren't for you. These labels are not there for you. The labels are just there for your providers. It's there for them. Don't make it an identity. The truth is that if you make it an identity, you won't be able to get out. You just can't. How can you? It's part of who you are. So it's not just recovering, it's kind of stripping out part of who you are. And your ego is designed like that. It's designed to protect you. And if it becomes an identity, nobody can help you. I can't help anybody fully come out if they're identified with anxiety. Anxiety, I have to make it very clear that it's something that's happening to them. It's not who they are. In fact, if you even look at it, one of the things I noticed is that when I recovered, I started posting just a little bit on forums. Just a little bit, not too much. I didn't, when I thought I'd recover, I thought I'd talk a lot more about anxiety recovery, but I just gave some value, thought it would help some people. What happened is that when I started posting about anxiety recovery, people started, I thought the reception would be great. I thought people would be like, oh, finally, somebody who's actually recovered would be able to explain it. Thank you, finally, someone's able to do it. That was actually not the response. The truth was, the response was, who is this person? Does this person not know that recovery is not even possible? That anxiety is only something that you can manage? That this is a life sentence? This person's trying to sell me something. This person's just a scammer. That's honestly what they said. And I was actually kind of taken back. I thought, if I just showed them, how I recovered and showed them some principles that I understood, that they would respond happily, but they didn't. And the reason why was because they became identified. So it's very important to understand that recovery is possible. You have to understand that recovery is possible. If you don't think recovery is possible, even if someone who knows how to recover shows you how to get out, then you're going to be too resistant to it. You're going to resist that, and you're not going to focus on recovery because, again, it affects your identity. And so even with those people, I can't really help them. I can't do anything. Even if I was with them and I took them step by step and told them what to do, it wouldn't work because they genuinely didn't believe in it. And so that's kind of the unique thing about anxiety, right? It's not like the flu. You don't have to believe in the flu or not believe in the flu in order for the flu to go away, right? You just do some stuff, get some rest, sleep, and then it ends up going away. Or, if you have like an infection, you take antibiotics. You don't need to believe whether the antibiotic is going to work or not. It just works. Anxiety is different. You really do have to understand, and you really do have to believe, only because recovery is an up and down affair. Recovery is like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And so if you don't really believe recovery is possible, well, then the truth is that you won't have enough fuel to keep focusing on recovery. You'll give up very quickly. You'll start self-validating the fact that, when you have a setback, oh, well, look, this means that recovery is not possible. So the most important thing to avoid is avoiding labels as a form of identity. Labels are good. They're important, but they're important for the medical world. They're important for medical practitioners, people that are evaluating, that are diagnosing, not as a form of identity per se. It just kind of helps you understand what's happening. It helps you realize that you're struggling with anxiety, but it can't be an identity. And I see too many people falling into that trap of making an identity. The second you make it an identity, nothing is really going to be able to help you just because you're attached to it. So I hope that helps. I hope that this video doesn't scare you or trigger you in any way. The main important thing to really understand is that recovery is totally possible, but you really have to understand that what's happening to you is actually happening to you. It's not who you are as a person. And I know how easy it is to feel broken or unique or feel like, you're broken and you need something from the outside. That's actually not true. Now, if you're focused a little bit more about long-term freedom, if you truly believe that recovery is possible and you want to get out of this and you really want to go on to live freely without this being there and just get out of this problem once and for all. You're not interested in anxiety being an identity. You want anxiety to be a past thing, a chapter closed where you can just go on to live and it's something that happened to you and you learned from it and now you're moving on. Well, if that's you, then why don't we just do this together? Why don't I just take you by the hand? I'll guide you to recovery myself. I'll take you step by step. I've helped people around the world. I'm currently helping people around the world. Many of these people are all doing they're doing better only because I've been working with them longer, and they're going back to living. They're enjoying themselves. They're getting out of this. They're not making anxiety an identity anymore. This is a chapter that's slowly going away, and now they're getting busy with other things. So if that's you, well then why don't I just invite you and take you to recovery myself? What's the point of watching all these videos? What's the point of trying to piecemeal your recovery, trying to figure out what applies and what doesn't? The roadmap to recovery, unless you haven't gone through it yourself, it's kind of weird. It's easy to lose yourself a little bit. So the best way I've always found is have someone take you by the hand and take you to recovery. In my personal opinion, someone who's personally gone through it themselves. There's a difference between experiencing anxiety and reading about anxiety in a book. Doesn't mean much. The main focus is if someone's really experienced anxiety, that's a whole different level of knowledge and understanding. So if that's you, well, why don't we do it ourselves? Why don't I take you by the hand and we'll get you to recovery? If that's you, I'll put a link down below. This is a link to my private mentorship. This isn't coaching per se, this is mentorship. I'm personally guiding you. We're working at this together. I'm not even just working with you, I'm showing you other people that have actually recovered. I'm showing you other people that are a few steps ahead of you to show you that this isn't a life sentence. People are all around the world are getting better, are making progress, are going back to living, not making anxiety an identity. So if that's you, hit the link down below, fill out the application. When you fill out the application, my team and I review it. If you're a good fit, if you're genuinely a good fit, we'll have a free strategy session with you. Really evaluate your biggest strengths. What are your biggest roadblocks? What are you really struggling with? And if you're a good fit, I will personally take you to recovery myself. Now here's the truth. Most people that apply, we cancel their application. We're very particular on who we work with. We have a small community. The focus is on long-term freedom. We're not interested in people just coping or managing or not willing to invest in themselves in this. We're really focused on people that are serious about recovery and focused on long-term freedom. So if that's you, hit the link down below and I'll see you guys inside.